Welcome back to another episode of Tips and Tricks with your favorite instructor, Instructor Shelton. Today, I have Miss Ayanna Thompson with us. How are you doing, Ayanna?
I'm great, Danielle. How are you?
I'm wonderful. So, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what do we need to know about Ayanna?
Well, first things first, I just have a passion for education.
Mm,
Not like teaching per se, because I consider teaching and learning different from education. Education is something you can like build tools on. So I
yes.
have a passion for education. I started out teaching middle school. I transitioned into teaching high school, and now I work with college age students. So it's been a good experience to kind of see some of the similarities that
Mm-hmm.
are shared between all age groups, and then how you have to take different approaches depending on that age group. So I have my area of uh, expert area, I guess, if that's
Yes.
okay to use, reading and English. So I taught reading and
Okay.
English in middle school, high school, and now I teach business communications. So like writing, public speaking to college students.
Oh, I love that. Another English person. Woo woo for the English. I have to give big ups to anybody who's doing English, just writing, creative writing, all that stuff. Because, people shy, they run from it. So
Yeah.
when I meet somebody that's in it, I'm like, yeah, English family. All right. So, what tips do you have for us today?
So there are a couple of things I have in mind, but the one thing I really want to start with, because it is something that one of the instructors on my team introduced to our team as we were going virtual, and it has changed the game. And it's called the flipped classroom model. I'm not sure, some folks
Okay.
are familiar with it, some may not be, but it's exactly what it sounds like. So traditionally, as instructors, as teachers, we stand before our students and we teach the content. And then once that session is over, we assign them homework to practice the content. Then we come back and either review the homework or move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of the flipped classroom model is you're kind of switching that experience. So instead of the students, and again, this is one of those where it works better for certain age groups. So older students can probably have a little bit more accountability. Um,
Okay.
so what it is instead of students practicing the task or the subject as homework, they are studying the content. So, and if I were teaching, let's say, how to compose a thesis sentence,
Yes.
and instead of me teaching students around like, here's how you should write a thesis sentence, here's what you should look for, here's how it should be structured, XYZ, students would engage in content that PowerPoints, articles, whatever the resources are that you would use in training, you would
Right.
assign that as homework. So then when
Okay.
it comes back to you, you can have a much robust conversation around, all right, so what questions do you have? And then you practice it in the classroom. So like you're actually there to walk them through some of the challenges they have.
Oh my
Um,
God, I love that. So that's sort of like front loading them
exactly.
before they
Yep.
come to you. And then by the time they come to you, because they have already gotten like the information, then they
Mhm.
can come to you and you can really have and like the engagement is there.
Exactly. Exactly. And it saves a lot of time. You know, you can get a better use of your time, let me say, while you are doing the instruction. Um, because oftentimes, if someone is assigned homework, when they're working on it on their own, they're struggling through some things a lot of times, and they
Yeah.
don't have you there or their classmates there to ask questions and get a better understanding. So like if they are front loaded with the content on their own, like I
Mhm.
said, like you said, when they come to you, you can really engage and answer questions, and you just start seeing the wheels turning. And you just
Right.
have better checks for understanding.
Oh my God, I love that. I love the and they it makes them accountable. It makes
Right.
them accountable for the content. It almost sounds very similar. I had a guest, Roger Ozario, and I
Mhm.
had a guest, and what he does is he puts them in different breakout rooms and he assigns each breakout room has like questions, and the students have to divide the question among themselves. And he like jumps into each break room, but everybody in that break room has to participate. And then he brings them all back together. And I was like, that's a great way to check for comprehension. And that's a great way to check for the student who likes to hide and they don't want to be called on. But if you have a question and it's directed to you and it's your turn, you got to participate. So if you do that in conjunction with your method of front loading that information, they need to know this information before they come to you. And then when they come to you, you get to have this like engagement and this robust conversation that takes place because they already have studied. That's awesome to me, because unfortunately I have had class periods where I have assigned work.
Haven't we all?
And I come in and I'm like, let's chat. And then they're like, well.
Yep. And so and then the students, you know, they own their learning. So, and I truly believe that as a teacher, my job is not to give you the information. My job is to give you the tools to critically think and to become a lifelong learner. And so this is a process that helps to build upon that. And so you mentioned breakout rooms. And like I said, there were some tools that I wanted to mention that help to support this flipped classroom model. And before I get to that, I will say, so the structure that our virtual schedule follows right now, we have a mix between synchronous and asynchronous learning. So during the asynchronous is when students will engage in the front loading of content. So then when we see them synchronously, that's when we can engage with those conversations and practice. So, you know, I understand that that's not the model that most folks are using. So the content could be assigned as homework, but what we try to do is use our asynchronous block, which is still during the regular program schedule, so that when we see them for the synchronous, and then it frees up some of their evening hours as well, because our students are juggling work and kids and things like that. So that's just for a little bit more context. That's what we're using, is like a mix between synchronized learning and asynchronous learning.
Oh my God, I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. We didn't get to the other tips, but I'm always, because this is a mini pod, I know I'm going to have guests that like rotate in. So hopefully, Ms. Thompson, you will come back with me and give some more detail, because I do love this, the flipped classroom model. And I'm definitely going to share. I'm going to practice like everything that I talk to people about. I practice because I want to find other ways to engage the classroom, to make them accountable, because accountability is huge. So this is excellent. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. Because like you said, we need this pandemic kind of flipped our whole world. And you didn't have much time to prep. You just had to hit the ground running. So this is very helpful. And just thank you for creating this community for us to come together and share this information.
Oh, well, that has been another episode of Tips and Tricks with Miss Ayanna Thompson and Danielle Shelton. See you guys later.